Fear stops us from achieving our true greatness. Are you a professional woman who is feeling stuck, unmotivated, or burned out? Are you worried about your wellness? Are you letting fear stop you from crushing your goals? If you answered yes to any or all of these, then this is the podcast for you. Dr. Charmaine Gregory, night shift emergency physician, burnout thriver, and wellness champion, along with everyday heroes just like you, will explore how to face fear in our lives and emerge victoriously.
Hello, Fearless Freedom family. We are back, and this week we have an amazing Dr. Mom of 4 boys. Yes, you heard it, 4 boys. And she is Dr. Sonal Patel. Sonal, do you want to tell the Fearless Freedom Tribe all about you and what you're up to?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, and hello, tribe. It's just amazing. We have such amazing outlets to talk about our journeys. And my journey started, I guess, with my parents because they're both doctors. So I was just influenced with their lifestyle. And I just looked at the landscape when I was deciding what I wanted to be. And so I became a doctor myself. My med school was a University of Nebraska Medical Center. Then I couple matched with my husband. We ended up down in New Orleans. I did my peds residency there. Then I went ahead and specialized in NICU. And so I did part of my NICU fellowship in Louisiana. My husband transferred to Boston to complete a trauma ortho fellowship. So I followed him and completed my NICU fellowship at Tufts in Boston. And then my only criteria, because I knew I wanted to be part-time. That was one thing that I really wanted. At that point, I had 1 son already. I knew I wanted to build a family. So my only criteria for the job search was I want to be a direct flight to my parents. And so that landed us in Denver, Colorado, where I found my part-time job in Denver Health here in the NICU. And I did that for 8 years. And then I stopped that and pursued, I think we're going to talk a little bit about more in this podcast about exactly where that led me to and why I basically changed my career path. I didn't do a full 180, but it just felt like a natural fit to do what I'm doing currently. And then in the process, I gained 3 more boys.
There you go.
So
no, that's
where
awesome.
We're at.
Yeah, no, that's quite the journey. I mean, to go from Nebraska to New Orleans and then up to Denver. I mean, that's quite the pathway. That's quite the pathway.
I always say when usually people move homes or move location, we moved through sea levels. So New Orleans was below sea level, Boston was at sea level, and Denver's like above sea level. So
oh my goodness.
That was our path.
That is a really neat way to look at it. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so you basically had to uproot each time, right? Because I mean, granted, so for med school, you're there for 4 years, you go to residency and you're there for 4 to 6 years or however long it took. But you tend to put a little bit of roots down in that area or in that place. Or do you not? Do you have a fear of not doing that because you don't want to have to break those ties, or how do you handle that, the movement?
Well, I actually thought that what an amazing opportunity that this is not dictating where I'm going to end up, but I always encourage residents and to actually, because you're going to be there for a set amount of time, to go explore a different part of the country. And what I learned too is because of the sea level, that actually factored in how some of the clinical care was done as well. So then I learned different approaches and I learned different ways. So not only it helped me explore a different region. And like, as you say, I mean, we've gone from south to east to now and Midwest, and now I guess more Midwest/West. But I just always encouraged residents to do that, because that's not really where you might end up, but it's really neat, an opportunity to, you're going to explore a different city, and also to learn a different way of the art of medicine, just learning a different way of handling a same situation. For example, in New Orleans, if a baby went on oxygen, we did $1 million workup. We needed to find out why this baby was going on oxygen. Up here in Denver, you have a lot of babies going home on oxygen because of the altitude and because of transition, and that was like a shock to me to come, and then you learn the different pathophysiologies, and you learn actually how to handle all of that. So I really thought it was a great experience, and you just kind of immerse yourself in not only your training, but the culture and the people, and you end up making great friends. Then now when you go back and to these cities that you often visit, you're like, hey, I have this friend, and then they visit you and your friends too. So I don't think that was the fearless part of it. I really actually looked at it more of as an adventure. Oh.
Okay, cool. That's interesting that you mentioned that, because of how medicine can be practiced differently at different altitudes and sea levels. But, you could even argue that medicine can be practiced slightly differently. The standard of medicine is going to be the same across the board, right?
Yep.
I mean, that stuff is basic. But, even from institution to institution, the culture of the institutions can be different. So, so you had not only the geography that was different and the implications to the patient population from the geography itself, but you also had hospital systems that were different. So you were literally transitioning twice. So that's huge. That's huge. And people don't really realize that. Oftentimes we don't. We think, we go to medical school, we go to residency, we figure, okay, we know what we need to do. We can plug ourselves into any situation, and you can, but you do have to be aware that there are some cultural things that are going to be different based on where you're located, and also geographic implications, for your location on your patient population. So that's pretty cool. Because I didn't even think about the whole thing of the kids needing oxygen, as they leave the hospital, and that being, relatively normal because of how the shift in the hemoglobin curve, being where you are, So that's pretty cool. That's neat.
Yeah. Yep.
So you mentioned a little bit about having a little bit of a change, or a little bit of a new component to your career, your path. You want to talk about that and how you got there?
Yes. So then with my fourth, fortunately or unfortunately, I've been blessed with all different types of deliveries. I've had a C-section. I've had complications from a VBAC. I've had grade 3 and a grade 4. And I'm very open about this. I've had a natural delivery, and then my fourth had preeclampsia. So what that showed me was it really smacked in my face about the postpartum care that we're delivering to moms here. And it was just like, what are we doing? So everybody thinks about the baby. And yes, babies are resilient. They're awesome. They're wonderful. But in the mix of it, what gets lost is the mom, who basically is the foundation of this dyad. And if we're not just basically honoring the fact that she had a baby and putting her through all these visits, all these things, particularly in the first week of life. So for example, traditionally speaking, and this is across the board, a mom has a baby in a hospital, and after that, a couple of days later, she leaves the hospital and she is told to go to the pediatrician's office. The pediatrician's office, they do their complete medical newborn care. Some pediatricians are very well versed in lactation. Some people aren't. Some people just don't have the time to even address it because of how medicine is currently. And then boom, you're sending this mom to another facility, another lactation group to help her with that. And throughout the first week, what you're doing is you're transporting this mom from visit to visit. And when you think about it, I remember having a C-section, and I always say this, and people who've heard me before talk about this. A C-section is abdominal surgery with a baby attached, right?
That's
like in
right.
any other
That's
time,
right.
any other time in your life you have abdominal surgery, they like weight restrict you, or they restrict you, bed rest you. And here you're supposed to not only heal yourself, but you're supposed to hold these babies. And in most cases, these babies are pretty big because of failure to progress. And then you're supposed to breastfeed, right? And then on top of that, you're supposed to go to this appointment, to that appointment. And we're not like honoring the fact that this mom just had a baby. And so then I kind of just really, with my fourth, it really smacked me in my face. And long story short, I had to do all these things for my other kids. I went to this appointment. It was 10 minutes, but it literally took me about, I want to say 4 to 6 hours to prepare to go to this appointment. And all they did was a weight check, and they said, hey, good job, you're doing lactation well, and a jaundice check, and I was out my way.
Wow.
And I was like, really? And that's the norm. Like, that's what everybody faces. And you're just like, wait a minute, there has to be something better. And then so I started doing some research, and I realized, countries like Finland and Japan and Australia actually provide home health services that address all these needs to the moms and honors the fact that they're actually healing. And then in the United States, we do have several programs that do that, but it's not wide-based. And so there's a program, obviously Kaiser, if you guys are in a state that is very Kaiser heavy, Kaiser sends out a nurse who is lactation trained that sees the moms in the first week. And then you have nurse partnership programs and Healthy Steps through federally funded programs. But however, they are in their niche, they are to, a specific type of person. So one of the programs only does the first time teenage moms. And then another program does it only, you have to be low income African American. And so it just kind of daunted me. It's like every time you have a baby, you still have the same struggles. So why can we not universally do this for the moms? And then the research shows that if you do this for the moms, and then you go back to your European countries and Australia and Japan, they have increased breastfeeding rates. They have decreased postpartum depression. They have increased infant development and childhood development. So then you have medical evidence-based that is so much more positive for just allowing that mom to heal for the first week, which is so powerful.
Wow,
sit back
definitely.
and
I mean, it's such a simple thing. It's like, wow,
yes.
it's a simple thing. And it's amazing that, you saw a pain point and you figured that there had to be a better way. You did the research, and then what came of that? Like, what came about as a result of that?
Yeah. So this is where this fear came in. And I was like, am I really going to leave all my training behind? Because, you put so much effort into doing a fellowship. Like with my husband also, he's a physician too. So you are balancing calls, you're balancing all of that. And am I going to, quote unquote, throw away all of that hard work to pursue a path where, first of all, it's kind of uncharted because there's only a few physicians that I know, and one or two that actually do this, and we all rely on each other to be like, how are you doing this? There's no path to it. And in medicine, you go into medicine, things are kind of laid out for you. You just have to kind of follow a path. So here you're kind of creating your own path. And then I would not be practicing NICU, which at this point I dedicated 10 years for. And am I really want to take this leap? Like, is it worth it? And, after a really hard soul searching, it took about 2 to 3 years before I went and opened up what I call it NayaCare. And the word Naya means renewal and sunshine. Okay. And it's, and it actually was always my girl's name.
Aww. But you never had the girl.
I was like, well, this is my baby too. And
that's
it
awesome.
Yeah, it was just a support, honestly, of my husband to be like, I think we can afford your salary not being there. And that was very fortunate for me. And it was just like very encouraging. And this has been a 3-year journey. And every year it gets better and better and more exciting. And I have more opportunities. And sometimes you see the light and sometimes you're just kind of plugging it through,
Right,
like
right.
any business owner.
Absolutely.
Oh,
That's awesome. So
yeah.
tell us like more about the structure of it. So we hear that, I'm hearing that you took the leap, you had like all your support systems in place. So it sounds like you had a discussion with your hubby and he was all for it, very supportive. And then you counted the cost, I guess, because it sounded like you kind of counted the cost. You're like, well, I did NICU fellowship. I did all these things, like, am I really going to do this? Am I going to utilize these skills anymore? And then you went for it. So then what happened? Like, how is it all set up? How's the structure of it?
So just the basics, you just have to get an LLC. And, as a medical doctor, you're like, what is that?
I know.
You're like, okay, I got to get this set up. I hate accounting. I have the QuickBooks. I know it's all set up and everything, but that's like the bane of my existence. I'm just like, I do not like that. The structure, so those are like the business highlights that you have to go through. Initially, the structure of it was, and this is the thing that I learned also, that I could change it because I'm the owner. I have
That's
that
right.
power.
I'm the boss.
I'm the boss.
I am the boss.
So initially started with just lactation. So I moved to Denver. I had never practiced here. And sometimes, when you go to the med school in your city or you actually practice a little bit outside in the community, you know the community a little better. I only knew the community of general pediatricians through the fact that when we were discharging babies, and usually with Denver Health, it's within its own system. So for the first year, I just did lactation. I just wanted to know the lay of the land. And then I realized that, again, we're still facing the same thing. I mean, I had several moms that were like, okay, we need to, I'll do the lactation and then you wait. And then the next day you have to go back into your pediatricians for a wait. And then the next day you have to go to the pediatricians for a wait. And you're like, well, then where's the time to breastfeed? Like all you're doing is making this mom come back in. And so I was like, well, no, this has to be a better way. And I have all these clinical skills, so I'm going to use them. And so 2 years ago, I added the clinical component of it, which is the complete medical newborn care. And what it started looking like, it's their 60-minute home visits that I go to the house. And once a client signs up with me, it's a concierge service with a direct pay model. So I don't charge an arm and a leg for this because I feel like altruistically or whatever, I just feel that every woman deserves it. So I try to make it as affordable as possible. But I'm with them for about 6 weeks. And within the 6 weeks, I'll do all the medical newborn care appointments that need to be done. All of them are done in the house. Obviously, there's a whole lactation component of it. And then at the 1 month mark, we screen them for postpartum depression. And for that whole 6 weeks, we are literally, I've gotten to know this family. I've gotten to know the moms. We are texting. There's a lot of support that is going on. And I just, essentially, sometimes I'm holding their hands and sometimes they just need that reassurance that it's okay to feel how they're feeling. Because we go through these emotions that are regulated by our hormones, and at times we just feel so overwhelmed and you feel nothing can be accomplished. And then just also, I have little tidbits in them. So like at the 2 week mark, I'm like, you and your significant other have to go on a coffee date. I always say coffee date because I don't want it to be so impossible to achieve. Because a coffee date, like you think in your head, 15, 20 minutes, right?
Right.
But this is like allowing the mom to actually mentally leave the house without their baby, and that's only for 20 minutes. So they're comfortable with that. And then they find it like so refreshing because at this point they've been pregnant for 10 months. They've had all these issues and they haven't had a time to process it. So I add all these little tidbits in there. At 1 month, they have to go for a lunch or a brunch date, So it's just recognizing what women are going through in the context of the family, and also allowing women to see that, hey, listen, the dad can do a little bit more than just change the diapers.
Absolutely.
Or
Absolutely.
You have your support system here. You can kind of let go a little. Like, it's okay for you to just step out for a second just to breathe. So just giving them that permission. So sometimes people just need that permission as well. So yeah, it's been fun. And then lately what I've been realizing is that every woman wants that opportunity to tell their birthing story, because it is a major change that has happened to them. And within it, if you just listen to them for 10, 15 minutes going through their birthing story, it's this cathartic thing that they have. And they're like, okay, I feel better. And that's the response that I usually got in. And so all of this cannot really be accomplished in 10 to 20 minute appointments in the pediatrician's office.
No,
correct?
There's no way. There's no way.
There. So then what happened is one of my local friends needed some extra pediatric help. And I was like, you know what? I really don't know how general peds really works, because I've never been in it. So I started that job in January. And in May, we decided, so for my own private clients, I don't take insurance. And my really whole goal is to make this more universal. So I was like, well, why don't we try it through the clinic? And so through the clinic, we're offering just the first visit at the house. So instead of them coming to the clinic, we're like, okay, the first visit, I will come out, I'll do the 60-minute visit, and then thereafter, you're just going to follow up in clinic. And the response has been phenomenal. I mean,
great.
Yes. It has led to more discoveries of how this is possible. The caveat is, we're going to hold a check for the amount that we think that this visit is valued at, but we're going to code and submit it to insurance. And some insurances have paid the full amount. Some insurance have paid a little 20% of the amount, but it's just really, and some insurance haven't. And so it just depends what plans they have.
Sure.
But regardless, parents want this. Parents, even those who have had to end up paying, they think the value of this is priceless. So now you're getting it from all things that, like you have some insurance that are paying, people are seeing the value in this, and it just seems like there's a little more momentum that's coming my way. So, so I'm really excited for what the next quarter is going to hold. So I have a little bit more opportunities and, to make this more of a reality for more women, because every woman needs this after every birth.
I hear you. As you were talking about it, I was like, that would have been nice. That would have been really nice.
So that's where I am, and it's just been an amazing journey. With every journey, you have your ups and downs, and you find your tribe to support you. And I actually have been able to go back to the NICU too, because in the NICU, we're doing great inpatient-wise, but the postpartum or post-discharge is still a little bit just wobbly, I guess. There's some things that go really well and some things that don't. But now I'm actually able to go back to the NICUs and say, hey, listen, these visits are being covered by X amount of insurance. Why don't we look into just seeing how we can make the discharge process a little bit more smoother and better for families too? Because remember, with the NICU, you have this mom or this family that has had their baby hooked up to monitors, and every personnel in the world coming to see their babies, and then in 1 minute you have that, and the next day you're home with your baby with silence, and you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do with this little one?
So scary. So scary.
So, and then I feel good, because then, people like the NICU docs will actually look at me to be like, oh yeah, you know what you're talking about, because you actually did this. So,
right.
But yeah, just some exciting stuff. But, you have to make that leap. You just
Absolutely.
do. If you feel it.
Absolutely. Wow. There's so much there. I mean, you went from total clinical to, doing work where you're actually doing concierge type work. You're going to the homes and seeing the families and getting to know the families to the point where you guys are, building a relationship over a long period of time, which is amazing. And then now it's like full circle, because now you're getting referrals from, pediatricians' offices, and then of course the NICU, which is really amazing. So that's awesome. That's a lot to have accomplished in 3 years. I mean, that is a lot.
Oh my goodness. Thanks. I appreciate that. There's so much more to do. I just feel like, sometimes in your business, you always feel there's a tipping point.
Oh yeah.
And you're waiting for it to come.
Oh yeah.
It still hasn't been there, but I'm waiting and I feel like it's coming. So.
Oh yes. It is definitely coming. And the crazy part about that is it's always when you think that you are, hitting a wall, when you're like, man, I just don't know, should I push through this? And it's when you push through, that's when all the floodgates just open up and everything just comes together. It already sounds like, from what you're describing, that the floodgates are starting to open, right? Because you've made the community connection. You now have the connection with the NICU, and it's a matter of time. You're going to have all your people that you have influenced and touched over the year or two, customers wise, like the patients, the moms,
right.
they're going to be, I mean, that's your best referral source, right? You have happy clients. They're going to be singing your praises, and they're going to tell their friends. And, that's how your clientele grows exponentially.
Yeah.
So now it's coming, sister. It's coming. You better be ready.
Oh my God.
Are you ready?
I am ready. I just wanted to come, but I just don't know when.
It's coming. Definitely.
I'm getting prepared. Well, thank you for that. That's when someone else says it to you objectively, because when you're in the midst of it, you don't realize it. But so I appreciate that. Thank you so much for that.
Yes, no problem. And so you talked about the fear of getting out there and starting your business. And it sounds like you're talking a little bit about some fear of success, right? Because now the floodgates are about to open and you are ready, but you're kind of fearful as to when is it going to happen. Can you speak to that a little bit? Like, how do you center yourself? How do you prepare yourself for success?
I think you just have to keep knocking. I mean, I have knocked on so many doors. And so one of my podcasts that I love to listen to is Guy Ross's How I Built This.
Okay.
And if you listen to any of those people, I mean, from Kate Spade using potato sacks,
right,
that was her
right.
first thing. And you're just just to surround and to have that mindset to be like, you have to push, nothing comes easy. But in the midst of it is well, how do you, like you said, how you do it? I think for me, one thing is, I guess I weight lift a lot just to get the energy out and just to get refocused.
Yeah.
So I will go down, and luckily we have a little gym downstairs, and, it's just to get the mind off. Just get your mind off of it. I've also more proactively limited social media, so I will post on stuff that for my Facebook page, and I will allow myself, timed limits on it. But then just to really have a better time management, and I'm still working on it. Everybody's a work in progress. I'm still working on it. I'm not the best at it, but I'm conscious about it. After 9:30, my phone is placed in my bathroom essentially. Okay. And I read. I'm like, you know what? I'm done for today. I've put in as much as I can, and I'm not going to let it bother this, because when it comes, it will come. Just every day I'm going to put enough effort into it, and that's how it's going to be. And right now I have this opportunity. So I wish somebody had told me this, and I'm telling myself this now. I went straight, we all do this. We go to college, med school, residency, fellowship job, right? We just are doing this. And obviously we're going to have high rates of burnout because at all those intervals, we are working our hardest. We're working at our peak level. And to have this opportunity to be like, oh my gosh, I can actually breathe for a second. And so I wish somebody would have told me that, listen, nobody's doing this. You're the only one doing this, especially in your area. You have a great idea. Why don't you take 6 months off before you go pursue it, you know? And so now what I'm doing is now I find myself having Friday afternoons off for however the logistics is. And I don't book anything in there. It is my time. It is for me to like sit down and I might watch Netflix. I might do something. And I've come to realize that I'm not going to feel guilty about that because I have put in all this effort. Mm-hmm. Yes. But I think that guilt is something that you really have to overcome. To be like, wait a minute, I could be folding clothes while watching TV, or I could be helping this household out to move forward. And you're just like, no, I've done enough for this week. I just need like 2 hours to myself, like myself to veg out. So, but I think all those components, you know, people talk about self-care, people always talk about meditation. I think those are all great. It's just that you have to really look into yourself and just be like, okay, what fits with me? And then you can go and conquer that fear because you're like, all right, I gave myself some me time. That was structured. That was for myself. And now I'm going to start again because these are the things that need to be left. And boom, I'm going to hit it hard. So I think those would be my things. So.
No, those are great. Those are great. I mean, because those are things that, you know, we tend, like you said, we just keep powering, we plow through straight along that line and we get to the end of the road and we're just kind of like, oh, okay, what now? What else? Because you never take the time to explore other things. And you also don't take the time to replenish your own personal stores of energy.
Right.
So I love that you do that with your phone though. That's great.
I do. I find it that I needed it. And then my husband was like, this is getting in our relationship because he's not on Facebook or any social media. And I found that it actually, I sleep better. And
wow.
I'm just, and it's put away since my husband's not on social media. His phone is the alarm. And it gives me a lot more clarity for the next day to be like, okay, I'm focused now. And I allow myself the social media. It's not that I deprive myself of it, but it's like a set amount of time. So, cause I find myself what I do in like 24 hours, I was just like always checking, like, if I had 2 seconds to wait, I would always check. And you're like, wait a minute, this is like really sucking my time and it's sucking me. So, but that's been one change that's been really helpful. So, I do digress once in a while. Yesterday there was a post about, all this physician stuff and everybody getting paid equal, so I got a little angry. So I was on the social media a little bit longer than I wanted to be.
Sure. Well, I mean, when there's a inciting cause that is worth weighing in on, then yes, I agree.
So, and then the fear is always going to be there, right? Like you're going to be fearful, but it's just, if you feel like you have a plan and you feel in your gut that what you're providing is good and has a value and it's going to impact and you believe strongly in it, and just face it. It's going to be fearful. I mean, you hear comments. It's like, why are you doing this? And why don't you just go back to traditional medicine? And you're just like, I don't want to.
Right. No, that's great. That is great. That is definitely facing fear boldly, which is what, we want to do, because that's how we unleash our true greatness. That's just what happens. So that is super exciting. Thank you so much for sharing those pearls, because that's helpful, right? I mean, you shared some practical things about how you face the fear of starting something new, completely different from what you had trained for or what you have trained for, and also how you are continuing to make sure that you preserve yourself, like throughout all of this, and not get all consumed within it, because it's very easy. As an entrepreneur, you are so passionate about what you do that it's very easy to get super consumed, and it can totally take over. So love that you have the afternoons on Friday blocked off, that time block. And I love that you have the after 9:30 also blocked off. That's awesome. That is awesome.
Thank you. That was a couple of new changes, and I've found a lot of benefit in it already. So I hope your listeners will use one or two, or just realize that just make it time for yourself, and it's okay. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, let's just keep it real. I'm going to be using one of those things. It's funny because I do a lot of things on social media, and, I used to have it where I would have working hours. Like I would have a power hour for social media in particular, where I basically break it down to posting, replying, engaging, et cetera, et cetera. But I have moved away from that, and it has become a little bit of a beast that has kind of like seeped into other areas. So it is always a good thing to put a time limit, even if you like just have, a timer on your phone, and you're like, okay, I'm going to be on for half an hour. And when that time is up, I'm just going to stop, just to have that check in place. So we can all use that. That's a great one. That is a great one for sure. Awesome. Oh my goodness. It's such a good conversation. So you definitely have to tell everybody how they can reach out to you. So if they're in the Denver area and they're interested in hiring you, how can they reach you? Or if they know family that's in the area that's about to have a baby, or recently had a baby, how can they get in contact with you?
Yes. Just on that note, I've had a couple of family members actually do this as a baby shower gift. So that's just to put that pearl out there.
Okay.
People always are giving stuff, and then when people give this, I'd had an aunt give it to her niece, and her niece was just like over the moon.
Best gift ever.
Yes.
No, that's thinking outside the box. I love it. That's great.
Yes. So to reach
if
me
you guys have
Denver,
anybody in the Denver area that need a baby shower gift, this is a perfect one. So definitely let them know how they can contact you, or how they can arrange something like that.
So directly, on Facebook, I'm on NayaCare Colorado. So it's NAYA Care, CARE Colorado. And then my website is NayaCare.org, NayaKer.org. So those are two ways to reach me at if you want to contact me. Actually, all the emails are there too, and phone numbers are there. So a lot of people I'm pretty good and within 24 hours responding back to you. So
awesome. And this is all going to be in the show notes as well, but that's great. So people can, if in case they're like not, someplace where they can write it down, they know it's in there, and they can know to reference it, so they can definitely get in contact with you. Awesome sauce.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we've had an amazing conversation. I've learned a lot, and I know the tribe has learned a lot in our conversation. And now we're at that point where we wrap things up, and we wrap it up with the 3 fill in the blank questions or statements. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right, cool. All right. So the first one is, to me, fearless freedom means
achieving my goals.
Cool. That's awesome. All right. And then, if I am fearless, I will
be a better version of myself.
Love it. Love it. And last but definitely not least, my battle cry is,
why not me? Why can I not be the one achieving what I always wanted to be? Why not?
Yes. That is so cool. Awesome. So that has been an amazing episode, y'all. Dr. Patel has brought it. Lots of pearls, lots of info, and you are going to definitely get all your relatives who are giving birth in the Denver area to be part of her clientele. I know you are. So, Dr. Patel, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And I hope that you have an awesome day.
Thank you so much for this platform, and you as well. And thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you you for joining us today on this journey. Fear is all around us. It strives to stop us from achieving our greatness. We have the tools to be overcomers. By sharing our stories, supporting each other, and doing self-reflection, we can do this. If you found value in this conversation today, please be sure to subscribe to and share this podcast with your friends. By going to your favorite podcast platform, leaving a review and a 5-star rating, you will help to get the word out about it. And that is much appreciated. Thanks again for spending time with us. I appreciate your time and your attention. It is my hope that you will punch fear in the face today and that you will be strong, be brave, and unleash your greatness.